Watch this.
For years, it was mostly known as the main ingredient of horse dewormer. Recently, though, it's been the main ingredient of COVID misinformation. Now, ivermectin could soon be available in Idaho over the counter. Transparency for thee, but not for me? Lawmakers have battled this session over what should be known about who's in their ear and who's paying for their travel. Today was no different. Idaho has certainly received its fair share of national and international attention lately. And the one thing that went around the world, well, just got name-dropped during a record-setting speech in our nation's capital. Well, 5 years ago, we were in the middle of a statewide stay-at-home order in order to crush the curve, to slow the spread of the novel coronavirus. But about a year into the pandemic, after a vaccine had already been rolled out in record time, people were still kind of looking for alternatives to treatment and prevention. Because of politics and misinformation, ivermectin became the covert COVID remedy. Remember during the summer of 2021 when we showed you the empty shelves at the local D&B supply of where they usually stocked the horse dewormer paste? Well, they were getting a run on it because, well, it was ivermectin, and the anti-parasitic antidote wasn't a medically approved method to treat COVID, and pharmacies were denying prescriptions, so people just went there to see if they could buy it themselves. However, many were still getting those prescriptions filled from doctors like Garden City pathologist Dr. Ryan Cole. Dr. Cole was later reprimanded and had his medical license in Washington suspended for 5 years for doing such things. Well, ivermectin still isn't an FDA-approved treatment for anything other than infections caused by parasitic worms, but that hasn't stopped Idaho lawmakers from, well, wanting to make the drug or make sure it can be available to anyone, anytime, over the counter, right, Aspen?
Yeah, this is the same idea that we've seen passed in the state of Arkansas and Tennessee. Now Idaho wants to be the third state to make this legal. In the bill hearing today, Senator Kelly Anthon, the sponsor of this bill, argues the drug is already available over the counter in countries around the world. He spoke about its low risk of addiction and affordability and says that its accessibility is crucial for millions of people who rely on it for diseases that are preventable, especially in low-income populations where there's limited health care resources. But today, pharmacy representatives raised concerns about making the drug so accessible. Pam Eaton with the Idaho State Pharmacy Association says over-the-counter medicine is safe and effective when you follow the directions on the label. And right now, the drug is not yet being manufactured to be sold over the counter.
Until the manufacturers create this as an OTC and has all that labeling on it, there's no way for a pharmacy to truly put it out and sell it as an OTC.
Senator Anthon responded by saying this bill doesn't mandate the sale of ivermectin over the counter, but makes it possible to do so if and when manufacturers get proper labeling. Anthon also thinks if the bill passes, quote, entrepreneurial companies could find ways to include labeling and warnings with the drug. He gave the example of adding a piece of paper with such warnings into the box with the drug, and then they would sell it to pharmacies. Now, Senator James Ruckte voted no, suggesting political motivations are driving the push for this bill.
Political reasons are not a good basis for making a decision to make a prescription drug an over-the-counter drug. That decision should be driven by the science. It should be driven by data and research, and we have none of that in front of us.
Senator Anthon says that's not why he brought this bill forward and that his constituents are pushing for better access to this drug. Now, Ryan, this narrowly passed out of Senate this morning, 4-3 vote. There were also concerns that committee members wanted to hear from a doctor before pushing this forward. Sure. It is late in the session, so we're kind of getting down to that debate of do we do this session?
And we did not hear from a doctor today on this.
We did not hear from a doctor today on this.
So explain how this works to me, Aspen, because for years, and we've all been told this, only the FDA can approve things for over the counter. Is that correct?
Right. That's not right. Non-approved FDA products can be sold over the counter. So that example of if now states are going to pass this and say we can sell it over the counter, you're going to see some of these manufacturers going to do that.
It just won't have that FDA seal of approval.
Right. It will not have the FDA approval. So, you know, when that happens, you have warnings from the pharmacy. Sure. Now, if it was sold over the table, they're kind of relying on people going up to the pharmacy and asking questions about that if they're going to get it over the counter.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Aspen. Well, in the vein of free access to medicine, or actually the opposite, not being told you have to take any medical preventions, medical freedom remains the only bill denied by the governor this session. Medical freedom may be a thing, but so is keeping kids healthy at school, he said. And instead of trying to override that veto, it looks like lawmakers, well, they're going to try at least two different new approaches to medical freedom. A new Senate bill and a new House bill were introduced yesterday, and today each chamber passed their version from their said committee to the floor. The Senate version, which changed some words with regard to daycare facilities, that went to what's called the 14th order, meaning they're going to amend it there as a group. Meanwhile, the House committee, an hour later, they made it clear. In their version, schools can still send sick kids home.
Daycare families are covered under existing Idaho code. If you wish as a parent to opt your child out of vaccines, you simply have to state that in a letter and present it, and your kids are opted out. And that's exactly the same procedure that our public schools use.
This bill just says you can't force someone to take, a medication or a vaccine or an injection or any kind of medical intervention as a condition coming back. If you're sick and you got measles, you got the fever, you got lice, whatever, you feel free to send them home. That's an existing state law. This bill does nothing to change that.
Well, House Bill 472, that's the House version, is now currently being debated on the House floor, even at 5 o'clock this evening. So they're still trying to get through some stuff. So like the immigration bills, the two bills are now basically on a collision course, or could be, and we could see a possible compromise bill, just kind of like that immigration bill. But again, we'll wait and see with only a few days left possibly in the session. Well, whoever thought transparency would be such a touchy subject this legislative session? For years, transparency has been the mantra of Idaho's majority party when it comes to budgets, elections, pandemics. But when the topic has been brought up in the form of a couple of bills this session, suddenly transparency gets a little bit heated, and the debate does as well. This is what happened. This has happened, I should say, with who's paying for lawmakers' travel and the latest version, which is holding lobbyists to a higher standard at the State House. But as Joe Paris found out ahead of the final vote today, some lawmakers either didn't quite understand the bill or at least claimed to not understand. What is this in front of me?
Yeah, we heard extended debate in the Idaho Senate from lawmakers who believe transparency for lobbyists, well, that would somehow impact everyday Idahoans who want to communicate their feelings to their elected representatives. They're making this a First Amendment thing. The question is, did they read the bill or was there a misunderstanding of it? House Bill 398 looks to elevate lobbyists to a higher standard of reporting their spending to influence lawmakers and how they vote. This year, the indirect lobbying effort has actually exploded in Idaho. The Secretary of State testified multiple times in committee to say so. What we've learned is that out-of-state groups, they're spending big money to try and get people to contact their lawmakers to influence how they vote, indirect lobbying. Under current law, though, the reporting requirements for lobbyists, they're minimal compared to campaign finance, has a higher tier. But a segment of lawmakers say they're a no on the concept. Here's why.
If we have a constituent drive from Idaho Falls, it's going to cost them more than $100 a day to drive here from Idaho Falls to talk to their legislator. When your constituents come over here and they buy gas for their car, they buy a meal, they maybe have to pay a babysitter if they have children, are they going to be dissuaded from coming to their state house?
I'm just not quite sure if the citizen advocacy part is clarified enough to my liking on this.
So a major pushback, I should say, from lawmakers who say that the bill simply doesn't say that. They say that this is about knowing how Idaho lawmakers are influenced, not silencing everyday Idahoans. Senator Shippey read from the bill ahead of the vote who is exempt, who, according to code in this bill, who's not a lobbyist.
If they are not being directly compensated for the purpose of lobbying for legislation or to influence a decision, it doesn't matter how much money they're spending of their own, they are exempt.
What about the farmer who calls his neighbor? Now he's going to have to register. I will submit to you again, this does not expand the definition of lobbyist. So when the lobbyist is online spending money like a madman on Facebook, they're going to have to start reporting it.
And maybe I should clarify for the senator there. He's saying that the farmer who calls his neighbors who are also farmers saying we should reach out to our lawmaker and ask them to do this, they're not paid to do that. So they wouldn't have to file anything as a lobbyist. They're just a regular person expressing their opinion. So Governor Little will get the final say on this, depending on how he reads it. And Brian, nobody outright said during the debate that they don't want transparency for lobbyists. No one would say that on the floor. But I did already hear questions from Idahoans about why would somebody vote against this? Yeah, they do put up a big fight about that. It's interesting what they say could be up to interpretation when it comes to these bills and what bills they say, that'll never be interpreted that way. It's selective. All right, thank you very much, Joe.
Indirect lobbying is an entire new section.
Okay, so during that 45-minute or so debate on the lobbyists, when the freshman Republican senator from Twin Falls, Josh Cole, there he is right there, he's going on and on for more than 9.5 minutes. You couldn't help but notice the senator from Meridian directly behind him. Senator Treg Berndt had some interesting reaction during Senator Cole's drawn-out discourse. And as you can see there at the very end, looking up at the ceiling, maybe contemplating what would it be like outside right about now. Yeah, that's kind of how we all feel right now, Senator. We are all Senator Berndt right about now, waiting for this thing to be over, nearing 90 days of the 86th. I think it's the 86th or 68th legislature. From the death penalty to dead bills to immigration, congratulations. Abby Davis has more of what's to know today in the 411.
I don't think there's any excuse to be messing around with kids under 12 years of age.
Pedophiles could now face the death penalty. Governor Brad Little recently signed a bill increasing punishment for convicted pedophiles, including allowing the death penalty for pedophiles convicted of lewd conduct with children under 12 if they meet certain criteria. The law goes into effect on July 1st.
It transforms the mission of our colleges and universities from educating doctors and lawyers and engineers and people who are going to provide to this prosperity of the state to creating social activists.
Faculty must have academic freedom to research all sorts of controversial topics. Otherwise, we make no progress as a state or as a nation.
The Senate's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion bill was moving fast until a House committee stepped on the brakes today. Senate Bill 1198 prohibits higher education institutions from maintaining DEI offices, employees, or required courses. After public testimony, the committee did not think they had enough time to study the bill or its consequences and sent it to general orders for revisions. A bill restricting access to non-emergency medical benefits and other social services to undocumented people is on the governor's desk. While emergency medical services would still be available, organizations need to ask for legal documentation for people to access things like food assistance, crisis counseling, and short-term shelters. It passed the Senate floor yesterday and now heads to the governor. Governor Little signed Senate Bill 1141 into law yesterday. It bans camping and sleeping in public spaces in cities over 100,000 residents like Boise, Meridian, and Nampa. The bill defines public camping as sitting or lying down for a prolonged amount of time or unauthorized lodging or residing in a temporary or outdoor habitation, which would include a tent or RV. Cities who fail to enforce the ban could face up to $10,000 per violation brought on by the Attorney General. The law goes into effect July 1st. Aside from signing bills, Governor Little was busy on social media, patting President Donald Trump on the back after Drug Enforcement Administration of Seattle, the Department of Homeland Security, and ICE arrested someone in Idaho Monday. In a post on X, they say the person was deported multiple times and allegedly attempted to sell fentanyl to coworkers. It's unclear where the arrest took place. And that's the 411 on the 208. I'm Abby Davis.
1,505 minutes. 1,505 minutes. I know it kind of sounds like that song from the musical Rent, except we're not talking about the measurement of a year here. 1,505 minutes is how long Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey spoke on the Senate floor over the course of 2 days, the longest such speech ever. He concluded yesterday just after 8 p.m. Not technically a filibuster, though, because it wasn't meant to slow any piece of legislation. Senator Booker was making a case against President Donald Trump, his administration, and the policies that they're pushing over the first 72 days in office. About 23 hours, or let's say 1,380 minutes into this record-setting speech, Senator Booker yielded to a question from the senator from Hawaii, as Senator Mazie Hirono was listing off several of President Trump's executive orders, like ending birthright citizenship, or his federal funding freezes, or the shuttering of USAID, and the assault on the federal workforce. Senator Hirono then got to what she called the war on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and going after schools.
So I want to give you just one example. There was a teacher in Idaho who had a poster in her classroom that said, "Everyone is welcome here." And there were handprints, different colors, white, black, yellow, handprints. And she was told she had to take this poster down, and that if the handprints were all white handprints, she could have kept the poster up, but she was told she had to take this poster in her classroom that says, "Everyone is welcome here." She took it down at first, but she felt so bad about it that she put it back up, and then she was told by the powers that be at her school that she had a certain amount of time to take this poster down, and otherwise there will be disciplinary action. That is the kind of government overreach that is a hallmark of this administration.
Okay, so Senator Hirono played a little loose with some of the details of the West Ada School District controversy. Sarah Inama, the Lewis and Clark Middle School teacher, was asked to remove a poster of hers because she was told the poster that says, well, everyone belongs here, or everyone is welcome here, I should say. Well, not everyone believes that. And while the controversial part did seem to be the skin tones of the hands on that poster, Sarah was not told if those hands were all white, that she could keep it up. That was something that wasn't necessarily said, but seemed to be implied. And yes, she was given until the end of the school year to take it down, but nobody's really made any mention of discipline yet, which brings us to your weekly reminder. The West Ada School District refuses to answer any questions about this ordeal. We were denied again today when we reached out. However, we do have an update to share. Several weeks ago, on the heels of this story taking off, and since, well, West Ada wasn't talking, we wanted to know how many people were talking to them or amongst them about this "everyone is welcome here" fiasco. So we put in a public records request for any emails, text messages, internal memos, anything that mentioned the words Sarah Inama or "everyone is welcome here," the word banner, how about KTVB, or even my name. And we were told there were more than 7,000 of those. And in order to get all of those in our possession, the district, they're going to have to go and pay somebody to go through them and redact any mentions of students' educational records or employee personnel records or any reference to any legal actions. We were also told it would take that person, that someone, 115 hours to do all that. And we would have to cover that cost, according to Idaho public records law, which would end up costing us nearly $9,500. Which we didn't want to spend. So instead of, well, getting all that together, we asked for a breakdown of those key words. And this is what we got. The most mentioned keyword of this would have been banner, 61% of the time, followed by teacher Sarah Inama's name at 29%. Then KTVB, and "everyone is welcome here," which I thought might be higher in people talking to the district, but it's only 1%. And then, of course, my name was mentioned just 1% of the time as well. So we're going to have to hold off and see what they may say. But just know that there were a lot of emails sent to and around the district because of this. And that was only in a week's time. So there's probably been a lot more since. We have noticed, and maybe it's because of the overwhelming response, you can no longer send a direct message through the district website to the district superintendent, that'd be Dr. Darapub, or the chief academic officer, and that'd be Marcus Myers. He's the administration official who told Mrs. Inama to remove that poster. Instead of connecting you directly to their email address like it used to do, the link on the West Ada website just sends you to their communications person. The invitation remains open for either one of them, either Dr. Bubb or Marcus Myers or any member of the school board, to speak with us about this. They haven't yet. Worth mentioning, the next West Ada School District Board meeting, that's coming up in about 2 weeks on April 14th. So maybe they might have something to say then.
Well, our clear, cold mornings and unsettled, showery afternoons and evenings have been playing on repeat this week, and that's exactly what is playing out again as we speak. You can see 4 different live looks from across the region. Looks like we are seeing some light snow around McCall, blue skies and clouds over the Prime Bridge in Twin Falls, where it's in the upper 40s. We've had showers coming and going over the Boise area for the last couple of hours. There's sunshine outside our studio right now. We had rain about 30 minutes ago. 49 in Boise right now, upper 30s in Sun Valley. So our satellite radar picture, I could almost have just copied and pasted our SatRad view from 24 hours ago. We're seeing those showers initiating over the higher elevations and moving in a general north to south direction. So your evening, I would not rule out a couple more spot showers around the Treasure Valley, though I think for the most part, dry, winds out over wet. Just be ready for a few raindrops. And as we head into the evening, we'll see those temperatures hovering in the mid 40s through about 10 o'clock tonight. So rinse and repeat again tomorrow as this low continues to very slowly drift eastward. We'll have have another unsettled day tomorrow. Then on Friday, our attention turns to this ridge of high pressure that will set in and bring us some really lovely weekend weather. We're talking highs up around 70 degrees by Sunday. Tomorrow morning will be chilly, below freezing again in Boise, so a cold start to what will be a still cooler than average day. Temperatures don't change a whole lot over today. We'll see low to mid 50s in the Treasure Valley tomorrow. Then we'll inch up bit by bit until we land in the upper 60s by Sunday. Slight chance of some showers Monday, but then back up to comfortable conditions after that.
All right, let's get to your comments today on this Wednesday. Jack in Boise wants to know, why are there laws that affect, well, only cities with more than 100,000 people, i.e. the camping ban? If it's required for Boise, Nampa, Meridian, why not Idaho Falls, Twin Falls, or even Pocatello? Let me tell you, Jack, there's a couple of bills that are directed right at cities like that, like Boise. That would be like the flag bill as well. So they had a specific target in mind. Now, these cities that are smaller than 100,000, they could always pass these laws, but they're not required. As a retired infection prevention nurse that dealt directly with the pandemic, I'm appalled. Idaho legislature is even considering over-the-counter ivermectin. It's a horse deworming treatment and not an antiviral medication. That's from John, a discouraged native Idahoan for 70 years. Meanwhile, Julie says she's tired of it being, well, described as just a horse drug. But here's the thing. Those empty shelves during the pandemic shows you what people would do when it's available over the counter. We'll see you tomorrow.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.